Hey, welcome to episode number 81 of the Between Two Brands podcast. As it says at the bottom, if you're watching this, I am still your host, Bill Petrie. And as always, thank you for joining me on this little content journey we seem to be on. I really am excited about today's guest. We have some really good stuff to talk about. But before we get to that, you know what we have to do? Let's go ahead and pay the rent, shall we? There is so much good coming out of our friends over at Belt Promo these days. Here's just a few of them. Lowest minimums in the industry? Oh, you know you can Belt Promo that. How about the deepest inventory around? Of course you can Belt Promo that. 5-star and A+ service? You can Belt Promo the heck out of that. And if that weren't enough, and honestly, it probably should be, the good folks at Belt Promo have a few other things to share. Made in the USA merchandise? Absolutely, they can Belt Promo that. How about free shipping on tech and apparel items? Yeah, you can Belt Promo that too. Head over to beltpromo.com to see all their amazing, fabulous merchandise. Feel confident that when your client asks you to create branded merchandise that's available with low minimums, and you can tell them, hey, yeah, I can Belt Promo that. All right. Today's opening shot is a little bit of a billatorial, I guess you would call it, merchatorial. I don't know what to call it. It's about AI and marketing, and something that is kind of sitting in my craw, as it were. I am so tired of these seemingly weekly AI trends. The latest I've seen are these kind of cartoony ads with a bunch of branded merchandise around and labels here and there and everywhere. And honestly, I am absolutely just exhausted by it. It's this influx of social media marketing. We're flooded by it, and it's gone in a week. And like I said, honestly, it's really starting to exhaust me. It's not that they're bad. Actually, some of them are pretty good. It's just the same thing over and over and again. And it's this weird bandwagon mentality we seem to have when it comes to AI. Oh, it can do that. Let's see what it does about for me, what it says about my company, what it shows that I look like. And I'm look, I stand here in front of you. I've been guilty of it. I haven't done it in a long time, but I've been guilty of this too. But I stopped, and I stopped for a reason. It started feeling like what I just mentioned, this bandwagon mentality. It started feeling like, why am I doing this? I had to ask myself that. Why am I doing it? Is it just to fit in? Is it just because it seems like everybody else is doing it? And that's kind of the conclusion I came up with, is that I feel like I'm doing this just because everybody else is doing it. I've had some challenges with AI lately. In talking with some friends and talking with some colleagues in the industry, let me be clear. I am absolutely for AI. It is so great for efficiency and automation. Honestly, it is a game changer when it comes to that. It truly is. If you want to even go deeper, it's a game changer for coding and things like that. It is so great. But when it's extensively used to market, and that can be graphics, writing, any of that stuff, I am at the point now, I feel like extensive use of AI absolutely erodes trust. It leads to content homogenation, kind of what I was talking about a minute ago, where everybody's doing the same kind of look and feel. And that leads, in my opinion, to a loss of authenticity and originality. And I think maybe that's both of those are pretty important, I think. And honestly, if you really think about AI and marketing as a total, most of the AI experiences when it comes to marketing and writing, I would say, are underwhelming. The expectations have more often than not outpaced the reality. And what I find real interesting about this, especially talking to my kids who are going to be 24 in October, Gen Z is pushing back and pushing back hard on AI and marketing. Um, they don't like it at all. Everything feels phony to them, and that erodes trust in not only individuals but brands. So I guess my bottom line for this little billatorial is that AI is incredibly useful for accelerating the mechanics of marketing. But the closer it gets to defining the meaning of a brand itself, I'd say the more cautious you need to be. I know I certainly am. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, what you're experiencing, what you are thinking when it comes to AI and specifically marketing and maybe even writing a little bit. All right. So, you know what we got to do now? Got to pay the rent again, right? You know what time it is? You know what season it is? That's right. It's business valuation season. Now, maybe you don't know what your company's worth. Perhaps it's been more than a few years since your last valuation and you need a new benchmark to see if your company's growing. Heck, you might want to see if it's even time to sell your business. Now, regardless of the reason, Jamie Watson and the experts at Certified Marketing Consultants, they have extensive experience in the world of branded merchandise and the financial knowledge necessary to provide a fact-based valuation of your business. All you need to do is email them at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. All right, I'm super pumped about my guest. Let's go ahead and bring her on. You know what? My guest absolutely doesn't need an introduction today, but again, I love wasting people's time. Let's waste yours, hers, and mine. She has held global leadership roles across go to market strategy, brand development, value creation, innovation, and partnerships in a variety of industries, and is now the Chief Marketing Officer for PPAI. In addition to her roles within two different promotional product suppliers, she has worked with well known brands developing advertising campaigns and market strategies. That means she's a lot smarter than the rest of us. Trust me on that. She previously served as an at-large director for the PPAI board from 2022 to 24. And prior to that, she served on this PPAI Strategic Foresight and Promotional Products Education Foundation committees. She's a serial volunteer for sure, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that. She's a versatile leader who's experienced in leading through successful change transformations, including rebranding and acquisitions. I guarantee we're talking about rebranding today. And she's keenly focused on stakeholder engagement with a collaborative approach. Please join me in welcoming one of the good ones, Melissa Ralston. Melissa, thank you so much for doing this today.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Bill. I'm so excited. This is my first one with you.
Yeah, I know. It, I don't even know what to say to that. Very
No,
rarely am
it's
I
good.
speechless. I'm officially speechless. Let's jump right in. You have such a varied background, both in and out of the branded merchandise space. How did you end up in this industry?
All jokes aside, I answered a monster.com ad back in 2003. And yeah, that's how. I mean, just kind of like anybody else, you're either born into it or you kind of stumble upon it. And so I answered an ad that Bic had posted, and now here I am, right? 20 some odd years later, kind of weaving in and out. And yeah, it's been a great ride.
That's funny. I actually got my first job in 2 years, 2 years before you, or a few years before you did. I started in
Yeah.
2000 and I answered a monster.com for Halo.
Hmm.
And this is before the bankruptcy and all that, only
Yeah.
to find out later, because my interview process was like all day on a Friday and I was offered the job. I started on Monday. I'm like, man, I must have crushed it. I found out about 3 weeks later that they had actually hired someone for the role of managing that office, but she just never showed up to work. And so my boss had a vacation plan and needed to get out of town. So I was like, yeah, he's fine. So that's how I got started in this
That's great.
industry.
That's great. How funny.
Um, so you worked at Bick and Cousy for
Hmm.
a long time, and then you worked
Yeah.
for a service provider a little bit with a exec coach,
Yeah.
Ashley McCune's company. And now you're the CMO of PPAI.
Hmm.
How did that background working for suppliers, working as a service provider help you with all these transitions?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually funny. When I was at Exec to Coach, PPAI actually became one of my clients, and so I was consulting for them for about 6 months. And
Hmm.
I've always been super passionate about our industry and kind of what we're doing from a marketing perspective to actually elevate what we do. And so for me, I think having that background has been helpful in some of the initiatives we're trying to roll out, right? So I have been able and been fortunate enough to wear a lot of hats in the industry, and I think that's given me different perspective to make sure I'm watching enough for the guardrails, but making sure we expand enough where it starts to make a few people maybe uneasy, but it's kind of the right thing to do, if that makes sense. So yeah.
It does. No, that uneasiness, I think, is we're going to get into that, but I think that uneasiness is good. That is the precursor of growth. That is the precursor of the future, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's been great. It was great to have those
Yeah.
previous experiences for sure.
I bet. Now, you also served on the board
Mhm.
prior to joining PPAI, which I think is always a very interesting dichotomy when you're a
Yeah.
volunteer working very closely with staff at PPAI, and then the next day you are now staff at
Yes.
PPAI answering to the board. How
Yes.
did your board service prepare you for being on PPAI staff?
Yeah, I'll be honest, and I'm glad you kind of asked the questions the way you did. I will say the board service probably prepared me more, right? One is having an overall understanding of the industry. One is having more of an understanding of what the association is actually doing, how maybe the inner workings are, right? So you get a little bit more visibility to that on the board, and so I think that certainly helped with my transition, right? I'd be
Mhm.
lying if I said it didn't, but that certainly
Sure.
helped.
Yeah. What was your biggest surprise, though? You had to be surprised, even though that
Mhm.
does prepare you. You've been in the building a bunch
Yep.
of times. You know not only the senior leadership when you're on the board, but you also know a lot of the support staff, the people who really make things happen.
Mhm.
What was your biggest surprise when when looking back? What was your biggest surprise joining staff?
The biggest surprise, and I say this to anyone who asks, is the amount of things that get done with a small team, right? I mean, it's 55 employees at PPAI, and the amount of things that everyone's working on for the industry and the members, right? Like it's just it's kind of mind-boggling to be honest
It
with
is.
you. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be it.
I love that answer because I don't think people realize for lack of a better term, the limited resources from a human capital perspective
Right.
that the organization has. And we all think of things like Expo, which is a big thing in the fact that that's pulled off. And there are organizations 3 times the size that couldn't do the job that Ellen and everybody does for that. Ellen Tucker, for those of you, I just assume everybody knows who she is, um, who couldn't pull that off. And so, you know, I love the fact that you highlight the fact that that is an incredibly efficient staff, incredibly efficient. Before you joined staff, though,
Hmm.
you were a serial volunteer. I mentioned that earlier.
Hmm.
Whenever I run into someone else, and I would consider myself a serial volunteer as
For
well, and
sure.
that's not patting myself on the back, it's just what I do. I love doing it. I think it's important to give back. Why has that been so important to you?
Yeah, I think so it's kind of both personal and professional, right? Like I have two daughters and I think growing up with them on a personal level, you want to be involved in their life, you want to know what's going on and the people they're around. I think and then you get to meet new people, you get to learn new things
Mhm.
about what they're doing. It's no different on a professional level, right? You get to meet really great people, you get to learn new things and learn about the inner workings of those specific companies or how the people are operating, and I think that for me was a big part of it, and I think it is a sense of that giving back, right? Like
Yeah,
um that sense of giving back alone, I think is also what is made me so enthused about actually working at PPAI too, right? It's
sure.
different, right? It's
It
just a
is.
different thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and I like you, I love giving back. One of the things that I found though, the more I volunteer, and the thing not only is it feel good to give back, it always amazes me how much more I learn about other people's perspectives. What I
Mhm.
love about serving on a committee, or even more importantly, a board, is that you can have really strong disagreements within that boardroom. But then, whenever the decision's made, everybody is singing out of the same hymnal out of that. We are all
Yep.
supporting the decision. And I love that process. And I love hearing other people's perspectives, especially in an era where generally speaking on social media, and that's really where discourse a lot happens, there's no respectful discourse, and
Sure.
so there's no opportunity to really learn somebody else's perspective, and I love that when it comes
Yep.
to volunteering.
And I think that's where the great ideas come from, right? Like no
Mhm.
one person knows it all. And so being
No.
able to leverage kind of the hearts and minds of others, right? To
Yep.
pressure test things, to have those interesting debates, to not be afraid to ask those questions. Like all those
Right.
things need to happen, right?
A little creative friction is good.
Yep.
And I can do one thing I can always do is tie something back to Van Halen. I will now. Van Halen wouldn't exist if David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen really had a hard time getting along, but that creative friction created some great music.
Yeah.
but I
Absolutely.
digress. Uh, Main reason, of course, I love talking to you anyway, but I wanted to have you on to talk about the PPAI brand refresh
Hmm.
that was launched by the time this drops about a month ago.
Hmm.
I think it's something that's been needed for the last decade. Looking at the older colors, they always made me think of the Joker in the 1989 Batman movie. Um, I want to know from your perspective, what was the catalyst behind the brand refresh?
Yeah, it actually kind of started as looking at a website initiative that rolled out for PPI a couple years ago. So that
Hmm.
took a little bit of a different look and feel than everything else we had going on. So at first it started as we kind of need to align what we're doing. And then I think as we rolled and I kind of came on board, we were going through the strategic planning process. And so then it started to evolve as okay, if kind of our vision and mission is to elevate the industry and kind of start to operate like a marketing association, we need to take a look at
Um,
ourselves
Imagine
first.
that.
And I mean, if like full transparency, we didn't really have a true brand DNA or brand
Mhm.
guidelines, right? We had a style guide and, you know, but no real personality, no real,
There's no intention. It seemed like there was no
yeah.
intention across all the things PPI touches. I didn't want to put words in your mouth.
Yo, yeah. So it's been a really interesting process. And like I was talking to somebody yesterday, like you keep finding new logos that pop up, like you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get that. I got to fix that. Right. But
Oh
I
yeah,
think that process alone has really helped us shape a story and a narrative that allows each like event to have its own identity, but still be part of the overall architecture of the brand. Right. And so I think
yeah.
that's been super exciting and well needed. Right. Like
Oh,
we're supposed to walk the walk. So.
it's like the shoemaker has the cobbler has the worst shoes in town type thing.
Yes.
It seems like in our industry though,
Hmm.
famous for resisting change like
Yeah.
nobody's business.
Yep.
How do you balance respecting the past
Hmm.
while really trying to push the branding, the marketing towards the future?
Yeah. That's I think something that I constantly internally struggle with. Do you hear my dog? Or is it
Nope,
just
do
me?
not.
Okay,
It's just
good.
you. That's
Perfect.
okay. We like
So
dogs. This is a
yeah, no,
dog-friendly
he's
program.
going bananas for somebody outside. But yeah, I think that's been that's kind of always been in the back of my mind, right? Is ensuring that we hold the integrity of what we were. And I think some of the color selection that we chose were nods
Hmm.
back, right? They're in
Yeah,
similar families.
right.
But then at the end of the day, it is kind of being confident in if you have set kind of the strategy behind it and you have the
Mhm.
why and you're explaining the why, like people should be able to come along the journey with you, right? And maybe
Absolutely.
not everyone will love it, and that's okay,
That's
right?
okay. Right.
Yeah,
Look, if everybody loves something, they're not being honest with you. I mean, you can't
right.
be everything to everybody. How are you going to market this, or how are you already marketing this to the industry?
Yeah, so we are kind of rolling it out in I'll say phases. So we started with kind of announcing via email and via social.
Hmm.
You'll start to see it in some of the communications have already changed over from us, be it media or marketing, kind of email and digital communications that are sent out. And so that'll roll out on digital channels. And then Responsibility Summit will actually be our first event where we'll
Okay.
start using kind of all the new branding for that event. It'll roll into LDC, and then Expo. You'll see
Yeah.
it then, right? For
Yeah.
sure.
So we're doing this podcast. So I do a little chunk in the beginning where I talk or yap about something, then I bring on a guest. So a couple of weeks ago, when
Mhm.
this came out, I talked about the rebranding or brand refresh.
Yeah.
Like it, love it, love like you said. The color hue is a
Hmm.
nod to that old purple, which is now it's more of a blue, and I thought
Right.
really great. The one thing I said
Hmm.
left me wanting more. I
Hmm.
want more. What's next? I got to know what's next. And you don't have to spill the beans, but you can because we only have two listeners anyway. What's next?
What's next for the refresh, or what's next
Yeah.
for PPAI?
Yes. All of it.
All of it?
All of
All of
it.
it. So next for the refresh, two things. One, I will say we are looking at doing some new things at Expo. So be on the lookout for some new ways that, yes, we'll be incorporating and infusing branding with that, but also some new ways and I don't want to steal Ellen's thunder, but some new ways we're partnering with her team to
Okay.
look at how Expo starts to look from a brand experience perspective. And that'll be rolled out over the course of a few years. And then
Sure.
I think on the second level, the other reason that I'm super excited to be here is that for the last year I've been working on a industry marketing campaign to truly elevate what we do as a marketing medium, right? And I
Hmm.
think many people that have been in the industry for a long time will hearken this back to, oh, well, that was promotional products work, right? We've been there,
Right.
done that, and and I recognize that, but I think this is really net new. Like
Yeah.
when people start to see, I think the visual concepts, the creative, like it's punchy, it's a little edgy, it's bright colors. And I think that alone is what's going to help cut through the clutter to truly get to the end buyers,
Hmm.
um, in terms of changing the perception and ultimately usage, right,
Yeah.
of merch. And so I think that to me is super exciting as to how that campaign evolves, and it's intended to be multi-year, and it is. I'm cognizant that that's an investment that our members are making in us, right, on behalf
Right.
of the industry. And so that is like really exciting right now. That for
I,
me is like what's next.
that is exciting. I'm kind of envious. That's awesome. That's so cool. Last question I have, and then if there's
Yeah,
anything you want to talk about,
sure.
I'm up for anything. So one of the things I've always noticed in our industry, and it kind of harkens back to what we talked about earlier, the cobbler has the worst shoes in town, and whether they're suppliers or distributors or even service providers, one thing people in our industry seem to really struggle with is clearly communicating the value they provide to their clients. So you have a varied marketing background. What advice would you give companies in our industry just to better market themselves?
I swear we didn't plan this question, but
Nope.
the way you framed it is exactly the way I would have answered it, right? And I think I think people struggle, companies struggle with what is their true value proposition.
Hmm.
Not maybe like what I want to be, but like what do I do really well? Like I
Right.
used to have a saying, be great at what you're good at, right? So if
Hmm.
you're a market specialist, be great at it. If
Hmm.
you're a distributor and you're great at these specific verticals, or you're locally based, or you're really into data and research, lean into that and kind of own it, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be my first one. My second one is it's a little bit of quality over quantity. So just the amount of social
Yeah.
posts, the amount of emails you send out doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah.
It's more the content, right, and
Yeah.
what you're bringing forward. So
Yeah. I love that. The only thing I would add to that is, especially on the distributor side, I see so many people say, what do you do? I'm like, well, I put logos on pens,
yeah,
mugs, and T-shirts and hats. Don't do that.
yeah,
I don't remember where I learned this. It is not my original, but
hmm,
if you can frame it as companies like X and Y hire me to help communicate the value of their brand, just
hmm,
starting with that,
yeah,
it gives you credibility and it opens up
yep,
things. You're not just a product person.
yep. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with this marketing campaign. Is we need to start selling merch as marketing, right?
Love it.
So
Love it.
perfect.
And we did not plan that. We did not plan that. Is there anything you wanted to talk about before we wrap this up, Melissa?
Um, Top right in your background. Tell me about that picture.
This one right here?
The woman.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I have a whole album wall back here. It's about 12 albums. I rotate
Okay.
them out.
Yeah.
And so that is the greatness that is the Rio album by Duran Duran.
Duran, love it. Okay. I just
Yeah.
bought some records last weekend, so great.
Awesome. What'd you
Yeah.
buy?
Well, I bought one of the Led Zeppelin
Okay.
albums. It was self-titled, and then I'm trying to think what else we bought. I got to go check in my back room here, but I'll let you know.
So I only have room for 12 back here, but I rotate them out
I love that.
depending on my mood of the week or
Love
whatever.
it.
So awesome. Well, before we say goodbye, let me thank our sponsor. Huge thanks to our pals over at Bell Promo for sponsoring this absolutely fine podcast. When you're looking for the lowest minimums, deepest inventory, 5-star and A+ service, you know you can Bell Promo that. Melissa, thank you again so much for joining us. This is great. I look forward to seeing what's next.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.